I am your host, Carrie, giving us different perspectives on where we are and where we want to go on our journey. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the FoundHer series. My name is Carrie Scollin. I am your host, and I am here showing up every week to bring inspiring speakers and guests and to share tools to really help you create the life that you desire and that you deserve. So this week, I have a guest. Her name is Teresa Walker. She's going to talk to us about making the most of our moments with an inspiring story that she has to share. She is a motivational keynote speaker and an inspirational facilitator of many workshops. And she has a story that I just want everybody to hear, and so many ideas and tools to help us get to where we want to be. So, Teresa, I welcome you. I thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait for everybody to hear this conversation.
Thanks, Carrie. It's great to be here. Always lovely to connect with you. So, we have so much we can chat about. Let's start our conversation.
You do, yes, I would love that. Okay, so I know that you started sharing your story a few years ago. I'm guessing about 4 years ago, maybe, where you started to maybe take it to the next level and know that you could help people by sharing your story for people who may be going through not even a similar event that you went through, but it can help a lot of us when we kind of take a look at our lives and where we're at. And I think what you've got to share is just massive in inviting us to take a look at some of our areas. So if you want to just give us a little version or let us know how you got to where you are today. And really, this show is about us finding our purpose and our passion and what we can do to make an impact and to make really the world a better place. That's how I look at it. So Thank you.
Sure. So really it was, where to start? Grew up small town, Saskatchewan, just a country girl, met a boy, fell in love, had some babies, had a home. We were really just creating life that we wanted and worked for us based off our values at the time. And he went to work one day and was killed in a workplace accident. And so I found myself as a 33-year-old widow with two small children. My children were 6 and 10 at the time. And so it was really a journey of heavy grief and after a trauma, and almost like a rediscovery of what I wanted to create moving forward. But there was always the challenge of that duality of what life was and trying to create what life was going to be moving forward.
Right.
And so in that process, I just learned a lot about myself. I spent a lot of time observing my children, and I am blessed with children that are from very opposite ends of the spectrum as to how they process, how they deal, how they feel, how they communicate. And so there was a lot of years of just observing, learning. And then once I did work really hard to find my voice so I could share my story, that was a big part of the healing, was then thinking, okay, I'm not the only one. There's got to be a lot of people out here that are looking for tools, that are looking for just strategies, and also too, like the accountability as to how do we get to what we want to create. And so my whole tagline is make the most with your moments, and getting back to it's about us and really learning about ourselves and then having that confidence to create what we want to create.
Right. And knowing that we deserve it. And what I've talked before on this show was about so many of us are waiting until something happens before we appreciate what we have, which is normal. I mean, I think most of us are in that mode of until the bottom falls out, we don't really get a grasp of how life is so short. So you had an event that made you look at that from all angles. I mean, Your world was completely changed when that happened. And I'm hoping that by sharing these stories that if the people haven't woken up yet, that make the most with your moments is that important. And we're waiting for that something to happen to us to make us do the things that we want to do, dream about the things, and actually take some action on making those things happen. So that's where I think is a beautiful part of your story is you did have that life-changing moment. What you've done with it is inspiring to me, for sure. And how you raised your kids with that inner knowing that they've got everything inside of them. And it's a matter of pulling that out. And we talked earlier about your youngest is graduating and all these questions about who do you want to be? What are you going to do? You're going to university, and they've got all of these questions piled up on top of them. And I think both of us were similar to that, where it was not necessarily who do you want to be, because that's who we are. That's who we are at our core, and our beliefs and our values. But how do you want to feel will help you determine what you want to do.
It's a great question. Raising my children, it was never of who do you want to be what do you want to be when you grow up? I changed the words, changed that dialogue, changed the conversation is, how do you want to feel? What's the impact you want to have? Talk a lot about legacy. It's like, I talk about that impactful moment in my life, like you say, that really threw me, for a curve. But it's like, when I speak or when I work with my clients, it's trying to impress upon them, this is life. We don't know. We take for granted we have a lot of time, but at any moment, it can be done. And so we got to get going here. What is it you want? Tap into yourself, learn about yourself. I think there's a lot that we know about ourselves. We just have to learn how to tap into it, listen to it, respect it.
And trust it.
And trust it.
Trust and honor. Yes, totally. I think we do know, or from what I've found is I never let myself get quiet enough to actually listen to what I had to say. I filled myself with other things, probably because I was scared of what I was gonna hear. But when you can take that time to really honor yourself, I think is a really nice way of putting it. You do start to tap into more of our intuition and what we are here for. And sometimes that's really scary.
Oh, for sure. And I think as leaders, that's the greatest thing we can give to other people. And I can only speak of my experience of being a mom.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of years out, and my son said to me, well, we all can't be perfect like you, Mom. And I was like, oh no, sweetheart. Anything but perfect. And so I reflected on what he said to me, and it was like, is he really seeing the authentic version of me, or am I wearing a mask as to what I hope he would see? And so it was learning to that accept my flaws, accept my challenges, and it's okay to share those things and embrace those things. We're all works in progress, and that's what we're meant to be. We're here to learn and grow. And when we learn and grow, we stumble and fall. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
And I think that's a message that doesn't really get shared all that often.
So true.
So it's like, no, Mama's not perfect. And I have no desire for you to try to reach for that either. And so that I found really gave us a good bound for some real conversations and opened the gates of some authentic communication and some real self-love and self-acceptance for all of us.
Right. And communication is a really big piece of what you do and what you're putting out there. Right.
Yeah. We have to be
really taught how to do that.
And we have all these thoughts that we kind of walk around and go, oh, I pray to God no one can see this, or I don't say this out loud. But it's like, we've got 5-10 people around us that are probably thinking the same thing.
Right.
And so it's like that whole analogy where you're sitting at class or you're sitting in an auditorium, there's always that one person that raises a hand. I've always been that person. It's like, well, but just a second here, I have a question, and it's like, there's lots of other people that are thinking or feeling that same thing too. They just aren't voicing it.
Right. And they're like, I'm so glad somebody asked that. Yes. I remember.
Voice it.
Yeah. I remember one time, I don't even remember the context of it, but Greg said to me, I must have blurted something out, which I can do. And he said, do you just say whatever pops in your mind? I'm like, oh no. A lot of things that if I did say everything that I thought, it wouldn't be good. So there's a bit of a filter there, but it is so important that, and I think especially for our children, for them to see that we have a vulnerable side, that we can get hurt, that we can cry, that we can be happy. I mean, you also spoke about that earlier, or it may have been somebody else I was talking to. It may have been Laura last week. And we talked about you can still feel joy in times of really hard situations. And so when you talked about the duality or the polarity of that, it's okay to feel joy in moments where you have deep sadness as well. It can be in that losing somebody, but the joy of having that person, maybe hard in that moment, but when you can just accept that you can have both and there's no wrong feeling.
And allowing ourselves. I think that was my own one of the biggest self lessons for myself was to, I remember early on in my grief journey, just thinking, okay, if I get to this point, it'll be done. And then I can start anew. And it was like, I remember when it was kind of that realization, it's like, no, I've got to learn how to combine this. There's no end point to grief. It's learning how do I combine it in my life. Right. And so, there is the times of the mix and combination of the joy and sadness and the longing for what was or what could have been, and the reality of what's here and now and being present in it. Right. For example, I just had my daughter's grade 12 graduation celebration, and it's mixed emotions, and all of that takes energy, and so that's where it's really important that we tap into ourselves, that we know how we tick, we know what lights us up, we know when we've hit our limits and how to care for ourselves and re-energize to get back to going, and allowing ourselves to rest and take care without feeling guilty.
Right. For it. Yes, a lot of guilt. There's always a lot of guilt when it comes to doing something for ourselves.
There can be.
Yeah, there can be. I think we're getting better at that by the conversations that we're having around that.
Yeah, because that's what we would not allow, I don't like that word, but we would encourage that with those we love, right? It's like, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And how can I help? What do you need? Right. We need to give that grace to ourselves.
Was there ever a point in the grieving process, and because I haven't gone through this, maybe we grieve other things. Sure. I have not grieved the loss of a husband. Is there a point you get to where it becomes acceptance? You accept what was handed to you, and now you make the choice of which way you're going to go. Yeah. Is there some sort of acceptance with that? I don't know. It's a word that's come up to me before. It's once we accept something, then we can move forward. But until we get to that acceptance mode, you're still in the cloud, really, of nothing makes sense and nothing's clear.
Well, they talk about the stages of denial, right? And the, it's the stage of acceptance. And it took me a long time to get there because I didn't want to accept it. Right. I loved the life I was living. I was creating with my best friend, my kids. We were known as the dream team. But I love the life I have now. It's just took some work to get here and creating. And so I've also learned with talking with other people is that some people choose never to accept. Right. And that's a tough one. And when you talk about grief, Carrie, like you may never have experienced the loss of a husband, but I also talk about is that grief is universal. We grieve a lot of things in our life, whether it be relationships, careers, parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
People who go through divorce, there's huge grief in that. That's a whole other life now trying to create. So there's a lot of, similarities in that. Differences, yes.
Yeah.
But again, we grieve in a lot of ways throughout our time in life.
Yeah. And that brings up a great point. We were talking about trauma as well. And I had a conversation with a friend, it wasn't that long ago, and she said, I've never experienced trauma in my childhood and I kind of sat back and I thought, we all probably have experienced some type of trauma. That trauma could have been something as simple as something said to you on the playground that you never forgot or started to become a belief. That's a type of trauma. So like you said, grief is different for everybody and trauma is different for everybody. But most of us have something that we experience that we may not relate to as a trauma event. But when you start to uncover some of those things, it may have accelerated or solidified a core belief that you have. And until we can uncover some of those things, we don't realize that some of that is what is holding us back. So to not make it less than for any type of grief that you're carrying or any type of trauma. If you're feeling something, there's something under there that you may uncover that you went, oh, I never thought I needed that, but I did. And I've uncovered that. And now it just, some things can make sense.
And again, it's a choice. Do we dive into it and try to work there and see what that means to us and what to do with it? Or do we just carry on and not do anything with it? Yeah. And I think a lot of
people can carry on.
They can. And it's like, I think in a lot of times in life, we're just busy doing. And sometimes we just don't acknowledge what's really affecting us. We just do and carry on and compartmentalize and put it over there and carry on because we got stuff to do. But I do strongly believe at some point in life, we go, whoa, we get here.
Yeah.
And then it's a process of unwinding our story and going, oh, this led to this choice, led to this event, led to this person, led to this. And it's like, but the key factor that's at the center of it is us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we might discover that we've given a lot of our power away to situations, to people, to events, that we've just become reactive. And it's like, now we need to pause and say, okay, how do we take our power back moving forward?
Right.
And get our voice.
Yeah. And understanding ourselves a little bit more.
And whatever it was, and we can't change that, but we can learn on making sense of it and how we want it to affect us or how much energy and time we want to give to it, creating moving forward. And I think that was a big part when we talked about how you said acceptance. It was, I had to choose to stop actively grieving and be like, okay, this is where life is at now. Yeah. What do I want to choose from this moment moving forward?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of things that can happen in people's lives where we get to the point, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what?
Enough of feeling this way. Yeah. I need to make a change or I'm going to stay here. Mm-hmm. Which one, what's it going to be?
And then cha-cha in life, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's where we have to learn to give ourselves and other people grace.
Yeah.
That means that we're trying, that means that we're learning, means that we're trying to grow, right? Yeah. So it's not going to be this linear process of forward momentum continuously. That's not how it works.
Well, and I think that some of us, that busyness is an actual protective, because when we're so busy, sometimes that numbs our feelings too.
Absolutely.
So we keep ourselves in that mode of busy, help. What can I do? Because then we don't have to put the focus on us. But that also can numb us.
Oh, for sure.
I think
Feeling
that's what I
feelings
found.
and thinking the thoughts and trying to understand them takes a ton of energy.
Energy. Yeah.
It can be exhausting.
Yeah.
But if we don't set the time, or if we don't find tools how to do that, we're going to stay within that pattern.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
The other part that I think I need to bring up in this too is because I said that we all have trauma. That was a generalization for sure. But usually if we look back, we can find something. Some people, like we said, don't want to find something, and that's fine too. I had done a video a while back, and it was talking about that it's okay to be okay as well,
Yeah.
right? We don't have to go looking for those things. The reason that we do is because we're feeling something that's not sitting right anymore.
Yeah.
Right. That's usually what comes up. Is like, hey, either there's more to life than this, or I'm just not feeling the energy that I want to feel. Whatever it is, there's usually something that makes you kind of, I don't know if it's the universe, you can call it whatever you want, but it's a little tap, tap, tap on the shoulder going, hey, there's more to this. You just need to dig a little bit. And if not, that's okay too. You can have a beautiful life without digging into everything as well. So I just wanted to make that point because I'd had somebody say, they went away somewhere and she was made to feel like because she didn't have any issues to deal with, that she didn't belong there.
Oh.
And that's how she was made to feel, which of course we all have the right to feel however we want to feel.
Yeah.
And to honor that as well.
And isn't that a beautiful thing that you go around feeling joy and you don't feel as if you have issues to work on?
Beautiful. That's what we're all striving.
It's like anything, our mindset. If we look for a problem, we're probably going to find a problem.
Exactly.
If we look for joy, we're probably going to find joy, right?
Yes.
Our minds are super powerful magnets.
Yes.
And so for me, again, up until that event, I was a happy-go-lucky, positive person. My journey was, after that happened, I can now say, and I can recognize, I fell into a depression a lot longer than I ever acknowledged. And so, and I think one of the most frustrating things for me was, up until then, I never had to work for my joy.
Wow.
And so I found myself having to work for my joy. And in that, I learned a ton. I learned a ton about myself. I learned a ton about just, I think, the world as a whole.
Yeah.
And so what works for someone else isn't meant to work for me. And that's okay.
Yes.
And I don't need to spend time and energy on other people trying to understand or to accept. It's just, and that's where I came back to, it's my moments. And so where do I want to put my energy? Because we only have so much. And so we have to prioritize. And again, it comes back to the confidence as to, and I'm okay that if I have a discussion with someone, if they don't get it, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes. And if you do what's right for you, it usually is right for the people around us because we're taking care of ourselves, which benefits.
Well, I do believe that was the greatest gift for my kids, is when I really got true and down to the grit of it and being authentic, letting them see mom lay like lettuce and then letting them see mom rise with a real smile or hear a real laugh. It gave them the permission to be real and honor their feelings and to understand we all may have low moments. We all have times of challenges. And what do they need to do that works for them?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the hardest things as a mom, is I couldn't fix them. I couldn't fix it for them.
Yeah.
But what I could do is encourage them, empower them,
show them
suggestions. But the greatest thing was to show them that I was doing the work for me.
Yes.
And when I did that, that was the greatest model, was for them.
Yes, 100%. I heard Dr. Jody Carrington speak, and I had a conversation with her after, and she said that she goes, all we want as parents is our children to be happy. You can say that all you want, but you need to show them. We can talk till we're blue in the face of what we want for them, but when we're showing them and living that, that is the best thing that we can do. So
And I think
I love that you
that
touched
is
on
the acceptance is that as parents, what works for our kids may not align with us.
Yes.
And that's okay, because we have to remember it's their moments.
Right.
It's their life to lead. It's their joy. It's their own personal struggles and challenges. And
okay.
Yeah.
That leads me right into what I want you to talk about next with, we are all so different. We are different from our kids, the way they learn, the way, I've talked about the 5 love languages before, but that's what you recognized was that the way that you do something may not be taken the way or helpful for your daughter or your son, which we've all been there, but you have tools now that you can share with people to help them through that process, just to see maybe is it what their strengths are, where, how they handle situations, that sort of thing. So do you mind telling us a little bit about that? Because if people want to be able to reach out to you, I'd love for them to know how to reach you and what you offer. I usually forget that part and then we run out of time. So do you mind just touching on that a little bit? Okay.
So,
and then I'll wrap it up.
Going through the process with myself, with my kids, observing, and my kids are polar opposites. And so I became that facilitator, the go-between, and then learning how to plant the seeds to encourage them. So 2 years ago, I learned about Kolbe and became a Kolbe certified professional, I guess. And so Kolbe is all about instinct and natural drive. And that's where I found myself in my heaviest of grief, was just my natural instincts took over. I didn't know why I was doing the things I did, but there's just this natural kind of voice inside, or this drive that's like, this is what you need to do this. And the more I tapped in and listened to that, then I start to make some forward momentum. And really that's what Kolbe's all based off of, is that our own unique design and learning how to tap into that energy. I'm a huge advocate for it. I think it's such an easy tool to understand, and you can basically start to implement it like instantaneously. That's why I love Kolbe. And it just makes so much sense as we start to build a foundation of understanding ourselves and then learning how to love and accept ourselves, how we tick, and then how to have the confidence to express it outwards to those around us in our social settings, in our homes, our families, our workplaces, because we learn about our energy. We learn what lights us up. We learn what knocks us down. And so that whole self-awareness, self-care really comes into play. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I know that you work individually with people. You do workshop facilitating with businesses. And sorry, I know that you keynote at retreats, because mine. So I'm happy about that. And one thing that I wanted to touch on to wrap this up was when I heard you speak the first time, I remembered something that you said that I still remember and I practice every night.
Yes.
And it does make me tear up, because it is something that that really has made a difference for me. And it was something so simple, but so impactful. And now I interpreted it, so you can say the right wording, but I know that you said something about every night, and it was with your kids. Yes. Is to ask your heart if your heart is happy.
Yeah. So when my kids were little and I tuck them into bed, and especially during grief journey, was just hand to heart, bring yourself, like feel yourself.
Yeah.
And just lay in bed. And so it's when you lay your head to your pillow at night, take a moment and ask yourself, is my heart happy? And then just lay there and be quiet and listen to what comes. And something will come. And I think when that comes is this, then to learn how to, that's the starting point, is just listen to ourselves, and our hearts will tell us. And
Yes.
so then we have a choice as to what to do with it.
Yeah.
And we may not know what to do with it, but the first thing is just to listen and honor to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to end that right here, because that is just such a practice that every one of us can do. You're not looking for anything other than just connecting, just taking that moment. You've had a day. Is my heart happy? And just hear what it has to say, because our hearts actually rule our minds. I thought it was the other way around, but our heart rules our entire body, and our minds especially. So just to have that connection, I love that. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Our time is out, but for those of you that are joining us, we're going to have another conversation for another 30 minutes, which is a complete bonus. And for all of you, as I say, every time when I leave, you are more than enough as is. And I hope that you are creating the life that you desire and deserve. So until next week, we will see you. And thank you for joining us.